Week 10 already? It's the month of November? How quickly the football season has flown by, but we got a great month of November lined up. 5 big weeks of football, and I'll be here every Friday with this week Phil Steele Plus tour with selections. And for today, we'll again touch on the FCS, NFL, FBS, show you how to use all the different features on the site, and best of all, give you some free selections. So before I get to it, what I was doing here is taking a look at next week's games. That's what I do on Friday. I take a little look ahead. Big matchup here, Penn State and Minnesota. It'll be a fun one next week. We'll delve into that next week, so let's get started. We're going to start a little different. Normally I finish off with the FCS and NFL. Let's start with the FCS. Only one FCS game for you this week. So let's get to that, and we'll click on the FCS team pages here. Now, I have them in alphabetical order. Once again, not big on the conferences of the FCS, but if you are, here they are by the conference as well. And we're going to take a look at the matchup between Presbyterian and Hampton. Interesting game in the Big South this week. So Presbyterian and Hampton, and here we go with the matchup. Now, Hampton's a 14.5-point favorite in this game. And here's what I came up with in doing my research here on the site last night. First of all, do you guys know who the quarterback is for Hampton? How about Deandre Francois from Florida State? He's hitting 60% of his passes with an 18-8 ratio this year. So you got to like that, coming off a big win. Now, granted, they only played Virginia Lynchburg in their last game, but they have just joined the Big South this year, and so they're making a big move up to the Big South. And Hampton has got, so far this year, a record of 4-4. For Presbyterian, their quarterbacks are Thompson and Huff. They have combined for just 54% completions with a 7-9 ratio. So I'm giving a fairly large edge here. If you look at the passing yards per game, 257. Passing yards here, 141. Fairly large quarterback edge goes to Hampton in this one. Now, Hampton runs the football well. If you take a look here, they're averaging 196 yards per game rush, 4.9 yards per carry, and I like to match up teams that run the football well against teams that do not defend the run well. And as you can see, Presbyterian has struggled against the run this year, giving up 222 yards per game, 4.9 yards per carry in conference play in the Big South, giving up 5.2 yards per carry. So we got a nice matchup there. Strong running team against a weak rush defense. If you take a look just at Big South play, here's the conference totals here. Hampton plus 127 yards per game in Big South play. Presbyterian minus 159. Now, interestingly, Presbyterian, this is their final year in the Big South. They are leaving the Big South. They're going to become an independent in 2020, and then they're moving down to the non-scholarship Pioneer Conference in 2021. And as you can tell, it's had a little bit of an impact on the team. They've had a winless record this year. Once again, this is a Hampton team that's joining the Big South. They're on the rise. So I like a team coming up on the rise versus a team going down like Presbyterian at this point. And add it all up, my computer's got Hampton winning this one 44-20 with a 454 to 298 yard edge. And they're only minus 14.5. So we're going to go with Hampton minus 14.5 over Presbyterian as your FCS play. And interestingly, I like to talk about Sacramento State because they were just way under the radar. Week 7, they weren't even ranked in the FCS. They're up to number 6 now. They've been number 3 in my average game grades every single week. We'll just see who they're playing this week because they've been doing great. They just beat Cal Poly last week, 38-14. I should just be using them every week as the play. And this week they are playing Weber State. Now, the one thing I wanted to point out here, Weber State's number 3 in the country in the coaches poll. Sacramento State's all the way up to number 6, but they're still the lower-ranked team. But Vegas has Sacramento State favored by 7 in that game. And as you can tell, my average game grades have got them 82.6 to 73.5. And they're at home, add in the 3-point home edge. That's calling for Sacramento State by, that'd be 9 by 12 points in this game, and they're only a 7-point favorite. So naturally, once again, leaning with Sacramento State. But the official FCS play is Hampton minus 14.5 over Presbyterian. All right, let's move on to the NFL. Oh, by the way, when you do look at the FCS, this takes you all the way back. You can see all the way back to 2010 for all the FCS. You get the individual leaders for last year. Their quarterback's gone. Their quarterback's gone for here as well, but they, like I said, brought in Deandre Francois. So you get all that on every team. I love the red and the green, Weber State does not have their quarterback gone, and Thompson's not gone. I got a little confused there. The individual stats are shown. If I went to Hampton and Presbyterian, you would see the Presbyterian's quarterbacks are gone here. Walker, Morgan, Pearson. This year they're using Thompson and Huff at the quarterback spot. But all this is available on every FCS team, and you can actually get the FCS version. Let me just show you Phil Steele Plus. If you go to Phil Steele Plus, you can get all the FCS. It's normally $29. Current price is $24, $19. Takes you all the way through the FCS playoffs. And don't you want to have this information at your fingertip? We'll also have the statistical leaders updated for you for the season for all the playoff teams once that comes around at the end of November. $19 gets you all this information. So if you're an FCS fan, you're wondering if I put out an FCS magazine, no need. You got all at your fingertips updated for this season for just $19. Or you get Phil Steele Plus Complete, which is FCS, NFL, and FBS. Regular $69. It's all the way down to $49 now since the season's a couple months in. $44 gets you this throughout the rest of the year. Just go here on the homepage of philsteele.com. Let's go to the homepage of philsteele.com, and when you go there, go to the store, and when you go to the store, just click on Phil Steele Plus, and then go ahead and type in that code word that I just mentioned to you, and you'll be able to get the price for just $44 for the rest of the year for right there. Code word is winners for the rest of the year. Take $5 off. So $44 gets it for you for the rest of the year. All right, let's move on to the NFL now. So we're just going to click on NFL info here and team pages, and we're going to click on NFL info here and team pages. I got one NFL selection for you, and then a bonus one I want to throw it at you this week. Our NFL selection, we're going to take a look at the Green Bay Packers versus the LA Chargers. Now, an interesting note, I was talking to Gil Brandt last week. Gil pointed out to me, and I didn't realize it at the time. Now I have seen it. It is published that actually in the NFL, the home teams have a losing record so far this year. And so the visitors have actually won more games than the home teams. That's shocking. I don't know if it's even happened. Like I said, Gil threw that out to me and looked it up. Yeah, it's absolutely, that's how it's gone this year. And if we're talking about a team that's a poor home team, you've got to talk about the LA Chargers. As you know, anytime, and we used this a couple weeks ago. Remember we used the Pittsburgh Steelers over LA? And I mentioned that Pittsburgh would actually have the fan edge, and they did. Well, you got to know the cheeseheads travel well, so Green Bay's going to have the home edge here when they play the Chargers in the soccer stadium. So I like the fact that we're only laying 3.5 with the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are a 7-1 team. The Chargers on the year are 3-5. It could very well be 2-6. Chicago missed that field goal at the end of the game. Chicago had a 388 to 231 yard edge against the Chargers last week, but Chicago missed that field goal at the end of the game, or the Chargers would be 2-6 coming in. If you look at their home games, they lost to the Steelers by 7. They lost to the Broncos by 7. They lost to Houston by 7. And once again, Green Bay will have the home edge here. If you tune this game in, Green Bay's going to have the crowd edge for this one, which I really like. It's sort of an underrated thing because naturally Vegas gives the 3-point home edge to the Chargers, but they don't really deserve it this week. Also, let's take a look how Green Bay's played on the road. They beat the Chiefs by 7. They beat Dallas by 10. And they beat Chicago by 7. So they've won all 3 of the road games this year. They're a good road team. Aaron Rodgers playing extremely well this season. The Chargers have been losing a lot of games this year. They don't play well at home. And add it all up, I'm going to take the visitor. We're going to go with the theme of the NFL this year, which is the visitors are doing well. Chargers on a 2-9 ATS run at home. Take the Green Bay Packers minus 3.5 over the Chargers. Your bonus play this week, it's not a selection, not an official selection. I'll probably regret not using it at the end of the week. I just want to take a look at the Jets-Miami game here and bring up a couple quick notes for you that I was looking at last night. The Jets defense actually holding opponents to 15 yards per game below their season average. Miami gives up 67 above. So an underrated defense. And while the Jets' offense has struggled most of the year, they did put up 382 yards against Dallas. Now, they played New England, one of the best defenses in the NFL, and struggled. And Jacksonville had 8 sacks last week. I don't think Miami's going to get that kind of pressure. They have 9 sacks all year. I'm looking for a big game out of Sam Darnold. I know Darnold struggled the last 2 weeks, but he had a big game against Dallas. He did not play against Philadelphia, New England, or Cleveland. They led Buffalo in that game at the half 6-0 and led most of the game. So they beat Dallas, led Buffalo. They've lost to New England and at Jacksonville the last 2 weeks. I like Sam Darnold to have a big game here against Miami. So I like the Jets in a sneaky play, -3 over Miami. And I like the fact that they're holding foes to 15 yards per game below their season average. So Sam Darnold is going to have a sneaky good game this week, I think. Not an official play. Your official NFL play is Green Bay. And once again, for the NFL, you've got all this information at your fingertips on every team page, color-coded red and green all the way back on every team. So you got to like that. And you get the individual player stats as well updated. You can see how Sam Darnold played here, 28 of 41, did not play these 3 games, 23 of 32 against Dallas. Playing New England on a Monday, he struggled. And Jacksonville had 8 sacks, but still 21 of 30. I'm looking for Darnold to have a pretty good game against Miami this week. All right, let's get to the FBS plays for this week. And we will start out. The first one I'm going to give you, I just want to show you how valuable and how to use some of these things on the pages. We're going to go to the Fbs Team Pages. This one's not an official play. Almost made it as an official play, but it's not. As you know, I like to put the visitor on the left. I'm going to put Texas State on the left here, and I'm going to put Louisiana on the right. So let's go click on Louisiana over here. And the one thing I want to show you is when you click on a team name, the series history pops up for you. So let's take a look at how Louisiana's done against Texas State. Now, this right here, it's color-coded green and red. Green is if you won the game. So you could tell at a glance they've won all 6 games. For the spread, it's color-coded green and red. Green is if you covered the game. Yeah, so they're 6-0 straight up, 6-0 against the spread against Texas State. You got to like that. And as you can tell, they run the football well when they play Texas State. A lot of green here. Very little red in the series history for Louisiana against Texas State. Texas State's offense struggling. Gresh Jensen was in concussion protocol earlier this week. He may play, but Tyler Vitt did play against Arkansas State in that 38-14 loss. Louisiana runs the football extremely well. Texas State does not run the football well. You know, I like when you got green over here, taking on red over here. I like those type of matchups. They give up 4.8 yards per carry. They rush for 6.9. Regis, Mitchell, and Calais are 3 guys that are outstanding. All 3 are going to have over 500 yards at the end of this week. They're averaging 6.9 yards per carry. So I like it when you got strong running teams against weak run defenses. You got the series history working for you. It's not an official play because when you look at the average game grades, they are at 23, so about 26 points better. They are laying 22. But I thought you'd be interested to see how the series history can be utilized here on Phil Steele Plus. And I do like Louisiana this week, minus the 22, but it is not an official play. So let's get to some official plays. I got 4 of them for you in the FBS. And let's start off with one that is a conference yards per game grade. And it's also going to be the inside the press box yardage game of the week. And we're going to take a look at Hawaii. They're laying 2 to Fresno, and I got a lot of interesting things on this game for you and a lot of reasons to slant with Hawaii over Fresno. The first thing we're going to take a look at is what I brought up, which is the conference yards per game. Here's conference play. Hawaii is plus 68 yards per game in conference play. Fresno's minus 63 yards per game. So generally when you got that going for you in conference play, Hawaii should be about a touchdown favorite in the game. They're only a 2-point favorite. So I like that conference play. And this breaks down conference play, home and away, you could tell at a glance. You could see that Fresno's minus 22 on the road. They're plus 39 at home. That's a nice advantage to have. And then also another thing to look at this week is who they beat. Hawaii has beaten Arizona, Oregon State. They did lose to Washington. They've lost to Boise and Air Force. They've lost to 3 pretty good teams. Look who Fresno's beaten. Sacramento State. I like Sacramento State in the FCS, but they still haven't beaten any FBS teams. New Mexico State and UNLV. So now I'm going to show you something on the homepage of Phil Steele, which really bears this one out. And we've got our blogs up here. Strength of wins, pain of losses. That's NFL. Let's go to FBS info, see if I got this here. Strength of wins, pain of losses. So this, you get credit for every FBS win of an opponent you beat. You get credit for every FBS loss of an opponent you beat, and we add them up down here. Interestingly, Fresno is 1-10. So in other words, the teams they've lost to have lost to 10 FBS opponents. The teams they have beaten have beat a grand total of 1 FBS foe. So Fresno, despite their decent record, is down here at 1-10 using this criteria. Meanwhile, Hawaii is up here at 9-6. As mentioned, they beat Arizona, they beat Oregon State, so their opponents have beaten 9 FBS foes. And meanwhile, the teams they've lost to have only lost to 6 FBS foes. So you got a team that's 9-6 in my strengths and wins, pain of losses, versus a team that's 1-10. That's a nice advantage to have. And this one is going to make it as my press box game of the week. And let's go ahead and look at press box. Put it over here and put it here. This is what you get with the press box page. This is the overview of it. You can, of course, get tuned in to the individual parts like here. Now, I give you my complete write-up on the game, on every game. I go through them all, break them down, put the teams side by side, give you all my thoughts right here. As you can tell, the yardage is saying Hawaii has a 475 to 394 yard edge. I always look at my computer's projection. You have to. And Inside the Press Box is great for that. So I've got Hawaii winning this 37-30 and Inside the Press Box. They're only a 2-point home favorite. So you got the strength of wins, pain of losses going for you. You got the yards per game in conference play. You got my computer saying they're going to outgain them by 80 yards. Seems like a pretty strong selection. I like Hawaii -2 over Fresno State. That's your first official FBS play, and it is my YPG game for Inside the Press Box. And one quick note for you for Inside the Press Box. When you do sign up for Inside the Press Box, all subscriptions include Phil Steele Plus for free. Right now, you can get the current price for Inside the Press Box for college football has been dropping every week because there's a lot of games gone. $99, $79 with the code STEEL19. If you just want 50% off this week's issue, STEEL19. You can go to InsideThePressBox.com to get there, or you can go to the store here on PhilSteele.com. Either way, InsideThePressBox.com. NFL, there's still a bunch of weeks left, $109, $89 with the code. Get them both all the way through the college and pro through the Super Bowl, by the way, is just $159. These are regular season prices here, $159 through the Super Bowl. How about that? All using the code word STEEL19. So go to InsideThePressBox.com to sign up for that. All right, let's get to my average game grade play, and we're going to take a look here. And once again, we're going to look at the team pages. We're going to click on Utah and put them up against Washington. A couple things I want to point out for you in this game. Let's click on Washington. And I do this for every game all week long. You could do the same thing. You just line them up side by side. You could look at green, red, and all this at your fingertips, $44 for the rest of the year, or get it free when you sign up for Inside the Press Box. This is my average game grade play. Now, the average game grade right out here takes a look at your yards rushing, yards passing, defensive rush, defensive pass, and the points, and then who you played against. So, as you could tell, look, they beat Idaho State 31-0. And they only beat BYU by 18, but it gave the BYU game a higher game grade because of the opponent they played and the fact it was on the road. This one was at home. They only earned a 98.1 game grade for this 31-0 shutout where they outgained an opponent by 427 yards because it takes into account the strength of opponent played, which is a beautiful thing about it. And anyway, it adds up your individual game grade, and out here is your cumulative one for the season. Well, Utah for the year is playing at 110.3, number 7 in the country. Washington's playing at a 98.7, number 25 in the country. Now, I bring this up, even if you give Washington a 4-point home edge, that's 102.7. that still would make Utah about a 7-point favorite on the road, and they're only laying 3 in this game. So I like that. You've got a team that's playing great. I also want to point out to you their defense. They gave up 381 yards against USC, their one loss. Since then, they gave up 313 to Washington State. Actually, all Washington State to 239 yards below their season average. Then it dropped down to 217 against Oregon State, held them to 226 below their season average. 136 yards against Arizona State, 250 yards below their season average, 83 yards against Cal, 241 below their season average. They're holding opponents to 172 yards per game below their season average, second best in the country. And look at these numbers: 381, 313, 217, 136, 83. That's a damn good defense by Utah. Meanwhile, Washington gave up 482, 434. You see some red over here. You look at Washington in the past, they've had a great D. They gave up 305 yards per game in conference play in 2018. But this year, 391 yards per game in conference play. They did play Oregon within 4 in their last home game. But overall, add it all up, the average game grade play, we're taking Utah with this ever-improving defense. Their defense on the year, by the way, if you take a look at them, giving up the last 4 weeks, 187 yards per game. Washington's given up 413 yards per game. They're plus 274 yards per game the last 4 weeks. They are minus 30 yards per game the last 4 weeks. And if you look at the average game grade, how about 119.4 versus 97.1? Go ahead and give them that 4-point home edge. That's 101.1. That's 18.3 points per game better right now Utah is over the last 4 weeks. Tough situation. Washington off a bye, Washington at home. But last 4 weeks, average game grade has gone by 18 points, and they're only laying 3. Zach Moss, one of the best running backs in the country. Tyler Huntley having a very underrated season, 10-1 ratio. Jacob Eason does have a 16-3 ratio, but if you click on individual player stats, you'll see that he had 10 of his touchdowns in non-conference play. 4-0 against Eastern Washington, 3-0 against Washington, and 3 touchdowns against BYU. So 10 of his 16 touchdowns came in non-conference play this year for Jacob Eason. And if you click over here, you can see in non-conference play, he's hitting 77%, 61% in conference play. Meanwhile, Tyler Huntley hitting 69% in conference play. So add it all up, an official play, Utah -3 over Washington. All right, we got 2 more games for you. We're going to go to a bubble burst game. And the bubble burst says a team who had big hopes coming into the season and had those dreams end the previous week usually struggles. And we're going to take a look at the Virginia Tech against Notre Dame game this week. And if you look at Notre Dame, they were in the playoffs last year. Well, guess what? This year they lost to Georgia. They lost to Michigan. They have 0% chance of making the playoff. They have 2 losses. There is no way they're going to top a conference champ. And they don't have any marquee games down the road. Virginia Tech, Duke, Navy, Boston College, Stanford. They cannot make the playoff. This is a team that was in the playoff last year. Playoff hopes are now gone with that crushing loss to Michigan last week, outgained by 257 yards. So it's my bubble burst theory. What do you have left to play for? And also, let's remember those individual stats we were talking about. Let's go ahead and click on those. We see that Ian Book had 5 touchdown passes against New Mexico, 5 against Bowling Green. So they came against pretty weak competition. Other than that, if you look at Ian Book on the year, he's got a 5-2 ratio. So overall, Ian Book not playing great against Power 5 teams. Most of his touchdowns have come against New Mexico and Bowling Green. Now, Virginia Tech hasn't been playing great defense this year. Very surprised. I thought Bud Foster would have a much improved defense. But they're fresh off a bye. Since that embarrassing game to Duke, they've won all 3 games, which is a positive. And I think you're going to see a good defensive effort here. Once again, if you click on the series history, and over here, this shows you that the home team has actually lost both games in the series, and the color coding here means whether they covered or not. The home team is 0-2 against the spread, 0-2 straight up. Virginia Tech won here at Notre Dame, 34-31. Notre Dame won there last year. So I think Virginia Tech, another thing I want to point out, in their 7 games this year, the underdog has covered all 7 games. So got all that going for you this week. I'm going to take Virginia Tech plus the 17.5 over Notre Dame. bubble burst theory is in full effect here for Virginia Tech and the underdog, 7-0 in Virginia Tech games this year. All right, let's go to your final FBS play. One thing I also want to point out, though, is my unbeaten pressure angle. I talk about it a lot. Unfortunately, last night inside the press box, I went against that. I actually used App State. Very disappointed in that. Very disappointed anytime I lose a game. App State was a team that had unbeaten pressure going for it. They lost outright last night to Georgia Southern. We'll have those stats updated for you a little later on today. And then Baylor did not cover last night in unbeaten pressure. The only team that's playing with unbeaten pressure here Saturday, real unbeaten pressure, is SMU. So SMU is playing against Memphis. Memphis is out here. And Memphis is a 6-point favorite. As you can tell, unbeaten pressure catching up with SMU against Tulsa. They trailed 30-9 in that game. We're fortunate to come away with an overtime win. Against Houston, they were outgained by 122 yards. Now they're playing a pretty good Memphis team at home. Memphis beat Tulane 47-17, Navy 35-23, Ole Miss 15-10. They're a much better team at home than they are on the road. And SMU's got this unbeaten pressure playing. We saw it last night. Both unbeaten teams lost against the spread, one of them losing outright. So I do like Memphis over SMU. It's not an official play, but just thought I would mention it. Let's get to our last official play here. And your 6th out of 6 official plays. We're going to take a look at Boise State traveling to face San Jose State this week. So let's click on Boise State on the left, San Jose State on the right. Now, this one's got it all. It's got talent, it's got angles, it's got situation, all going for it this week. Mountain West Conference, San Jose. I did mention, by the way, Josh Love having a great year. I mentioned that in the Wednesday News and Notes. If you haven't checked out the Wednesday News and Notes, I want you to make sure you do that right now. When you go to philsteele.com, you can click on the YouTube video right here, and you will get the news and notes up there. And when you click on the news and notes, there are 2 free plays up there. Last week, the Wednesday News and Notes free plays went 2-0, Western Michigan and then Rutgers over Liberty. And when you do go here, do make sure that you subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. When you get the weekly features, hit the bell naturally. When you hit the bell, that means you're notified whenever it's updated. We update every Wednesday and Friday with free plays. And here, make sure you check out this news and notes. I got lots of great features in there for you. 2 free plays up there for you included, and a little breakdown of how Josh Love has been doing. Make sure you give me a like as well, and share it, and do all that fun stuff. This helps keep it all free. This YouTube stuff, it's all free. And if you do all that stuff, it keeps it free. So subscribe, hit the bell, and give me a like. And then leave me your comments, what you'd like to see. Somebody mentioned we'd like to see more NFL. Got a lot of NFL stuff here for you in this Wednesday News and Notes. It gives you angles and more. Do make sure you check that out, as well as today. Well, you're watching today's YouTube video. All right, let's go to this Boise State and San Jose State game this week. And the first thing I want to point out is that in the series, let's go ahead and click on the series here. Once again, when you do that, you just click on the team name. Look at that, 13-0 Boise is in the series. Their average win by 28 points per game, 5-1 over the last 6. They did not cover the last one, but 5-1 the last 6. This is a series absolutely dominated by Boise. So we got the series history going for us. And if you look how Boise has done here at San Jose, at San Jose, at San Jose, their last 6 here at San Jose, or the last 3, they've won here by an average of 27.3 points per game. So you got series history going for you. Boise's a great away favorite. I've pointed out many times in this news and notes and Phil Steele Plus tour, Boise struggles as a home favorite because Vegas overcompensates. You know what the record is as an away favorite? How about 37-17? They do great as an away favorite. Covered here at UNLV. Well, Florida State, they were not a favorite. But you go back to last year, they beat New Mexico 45-14, covered at Air Force, covered at Nevada. So they do really good as an away favorite. They are 37-17. Boise's played the tougher schedule. They've taken on the number 69 schedule. San Jose's having a great year, 4-4, but they have taken on the number 109 schedule. If we take a look how they've done in conference play, Boise is plus 85 yards per game. San Jose is minus 67 yards per game. Look at their rush defense, by the way. In conference play, they're giving up 267 yards per game rush, 4.9 yards per carry. Boise averages 5 yards per carry. Gotta like that. Boise has a special teams edge. I don't have that on Phil Steele Plus, but I'll tell you what the edge is. Boise's my number 23 special teams unit. San Jose comes in at number 126. San Jose is playing a 7th straight week. Here's their open date here. They just traveled across the country, played on the East Coast against Army, against the option and all that cut blocking. Now they got to come back home. Generally, when you take on teams that cut block, you struggle the next week. So they got that factor going for them. Meanwhile, Boise is off a loss, off a bye. I love teams that are strong teams that are off a loss, off a bye. So the situation really favors Boise. San Jose playing a 7th straight week, off a trip to the East Coast versus the option, versus cut blocking, coming back home. Strong road team here. And if you look at how these two teams did against Air Force, you could say, well, they only beat Air Force 30-19. That was a solid win on a Friday. And these guys only lost to Air Force by 17. But when you click on the box score, it shows you how the game went down. Remember, this is a game that San Jose trailed Air Force 41-10. They got a garbage TD here, 41-17. And then Air Force amazingly went for it on 4th down here and got stopped late in the game. They went for it on 4th down on their own 22-yard line. San Jose went 22 yards in 4 plays and got another touchdown. Misleading final, 41-24 is 41-10, with just 4 minutes to go in the game. So what you have here, you've got the talent. Boise's a stronger team. Look how they're doing in conference play. You've got the angles. They're a great away favorite. And you got the situation. Off a loss, off a bye versus a team playing a 7th straight week. Add it all up. I like Boise State minus 17. So your official plays, Boise State minus 17. Virginia Tech with the bubble burst theory plus 17.5. Utah with the average game grade, especially the last 4 weeks average game grade, minus 3 over Washington. Conference yards per game play, Hawaii minus 2 over Air Force. That's also a inside the press box yards per game play. NFL play is Green Bay minus 3.5 over the Chargers. Your FCS play is Hampton minus 14.5 over Presbyterian. Don't forget to give us a like. Don't forget to check out that Wednesday News and Note one with 2 free selections for you. And as always, thanks for watching, taking the Phil Steele Plus tour with your free selections. Have a great weekend.